Here's everything you might have missed in the Wheel of Time Episode 4. The Wheel of Time turns and ages come to pass, leaving memories that become legends and episodes that become YouTube videos. And that's exactly what we're doing here with the Wheel of Time's 4th episode, The Dragon Reborn. And as with every episode so far, The Dragon Reborn is full of plenty of Easter eggs, subtle references, and details that you might have missed. So we're going to break it all down for you in just a moment. While we'll endeavor to keep book spoilers to an absolute minimum and only talk about comparisons to what's happened on the show, we will need to spoil what happened in this episode of The Wheel of Time in order to talk about it. It's kind of how that works. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, leave now before you get all choked up in the comments section. Alright, let's get into it, shall we? Let's start like the episode does with a flashback to Logain Ablar, a man claiming to be the Dragon Reborn. We last saw him in the custody of the Aes Sedai contingent led by Liandrin in episode 3. But here we see Logain and his army rampaging through the kingdom of Ghealdan, confirmed by both the text on the screen and the Ghealdanan banner of 3 6-pointed stars on a field of red, or as they call it in the audiobook, Ghealdan. This is an event that's alluded to in the books, but here we get to see just how powerful this Dragon Reborn wannabe actually is. As Logain's about to take a dagger to the throat from the King of Ghealdan, he channels the One Power, but unlike the clean silvery white flows of energy channeled by the women of the Aes Sedai, his flows of power are covered by this oily black corruption. As we explained previously, this is due to the Dark One's taint that infected the male half of the One Power during the event that led to the breaking of the world, and for more on that, check out our first 3 episode breakdowns. The shadowy corruption is also what worms its way into the minds of men who can channel and slowly drives them mad, as we see here. Much like we saw in the cold open of the pilot episode with a mystery man hallucinating someone who isn't there, here we see an inky black woman named Alusha and a mystery man talking to Logain. Now these could simply be manifestations of the madness caused by channeling the male half of the One Power, or maybe, as Logain asserts, they are previous versions of the Dragon Reborn, playing into the idea the show puts forth that the Dragon Reborn can either be male or female, whereas in the books they are exclusively male. While Logain is proclaimed a false dragon by Moiraine towards the episode's end, book readers will know that having a previous Dragon Reborn living rent-free in your head is a major through line in the books. Now, of course, despite his incredible capacity for destruction, we see that Logain wants to be the Dragon Reborn that saves the world rather than destroys it, as evidenced by healing the Ghealdanan King's wounds rather than turning him into a fine red mist. Moving on, we return to the present at the Aes Sedai camp where Moiraine, Lan, and Nynaeve are settling in with a group of green and red Aja Aes Sedai sisters who have captured Logain. Now, the greens and reds have separate color-coded tents, which shows a tribalistic tendency despite everyone being a part of the White Tower. As Liandrin and Alanna explain later in the episode, the Red Aja are basically the cops of the Aes Sedai. Their mission is to capture men who can channel and root out agents of the Dark One no matter the cost. And as we've seen in the first episode, their methods are brutal but effective. The Blue Aja, to which Moiraine belongs, is derisively referred to as a bunch of spies by Liandrin, which is rude but kinda true. The Blues are the Reds' biggest rivals in the Tower, and while they are drawn towards big causes and rendering justice, they also run an extensive network of spies spread across the land. Lastly, we have the Green Aja, who are called the Battle Aja, and despite Nynaeve's innocent question about threesomes by the fireside, the Green Aja is known for their sisters bonding multiple warders. So those polyamorous pugilists train themselves for battle so they can stand ready to fight during Tarmangaiden, the last battle against the forces of the Dark One. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. The Aes Sedai imprisoned Logain in a giant cage, but he's so strong with the One Power, you need multiple sisters to stand watch and channel flows of air to shield him. This is depicted as a silvery force field around Logain, and it has the effect of cutting him off temporarily from accessing the One Power. Of course, as we'll see later, he was just toying with everyone until his army could creep ever closer, but more on that in just a bit. Next up, we catch up with Perrin and Egwene in the Tuatha'an caravan. During their time with the Tinkers, as they're also known, we get some more lore, including a deeper dive into the Way of the Leaf. The Tuatha'an are a pacifistic people who wander the land in search of a lost song that's said to bring peace to the world. And when they turn 20, they basically go on like fantasy rumspringen to decide if they want to be a normie or if they want to come back to their brightly colored nomadic pacifistic life. Of course, following the Way of the Leaf comes with some conditions. If they're attacked, they either run away or accept their fate, believing that if they're killed, they will be reborn as the Wheel of Time reinserts them into the pattern at a later date, essentially being reincarnated. This means that the Tuatha'an also abhor weapons, and they won't even touch them if they can avoid it. During Isla's conversation with Perrin, she asks him the question he'll be grappling with for at least the entirety of this first season. Has your life been better since you picked up that axe? Well, clearly not, considering he accidentally murdered his wife with it. But I was having a nice day, so I'm not going to rehash how I feel about that particular plot point. Anyway, we also get a nice nod to the books with Egwene and Aram dancing together by the fire, while Perrin refuses to have a good time for literally 1 second in his entire life, even when he's helping to repair a wagon wheel for people that gave him food for his stomach and food for thought. Moving on, we come to Mat, Rand, and Tom Merrilin, who arrive at what we learn is the Grinwell family farm, which is straight out of the books. While they try to hatch a plan to break into a barn at night so they can have somewhere to sleep, the entire Grinwell family sneaks up on them with bows and arrows, which... guys, come on, you're gonna get murked by farmers? Grow up. Anyway, you can hear menacing whispers on the wind as Mat reaches for the ruby-hilted dagger that he took from Shadar Logoth, or Shadar Logoth as I learned to call it. But thankfully, Rand diffuses the situation, and once again, our heroes face Mat's deadliest foe to date, manual labor. Mat takes a break to do his best Venom impression by vomiting up this bilious black goo, followed by more of that evil whispering, and this is a physical manifestation of the sinister forces of Shadar Logoth that have wormed their way into his being through that dagger. He's interrupted, though, by Helga Grinwell, the family's youngest daughter, who brought some bread to the boys for a hard day's work, and she and Mat wind up having a very cute bonding moment over Mat's sisters, and she very sweetly gives him a present to take home to his siblings, her doll Birgitta. Now, in the Wheel of Time, Birgitta Silverbow is a legendary hero, a master archer who's been spun out into the pattern many times throughout history. Helga also mentions that her Birgitta doll protects her when she's asleep, which could be a subtle reference to Tel'aran Riyod, the world of dreams that we've seen several times in the series thus far during those eerie nightmare sequences. Now, in the books, before they're spun back into the pattern by the Wheel of Time, Birgitta and other heroes of legend dwell in the world of dreams, but we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. Now, as a Gleeman, Tom is a master of observation, and although he's only known Mat a very short time, he's already clocked his increasingly odd behavior and the strange way that animals respond to him. Tom doesn't know that Mat is actually under the influence of that dagger, though. Rather, he suspects that Mat is someone who can channel, and these are the early signs of madness. And he knows this because the same thing happened to his nephew Owen, a man who one day discovered that he too could channel. Owen was ultimately captured and gentled by Red Aja sisters of the Aes Sedai. And gentling, as we'll see in this episode's climax, is the biggest misnomer in the entire series. It refers to the act of forcibly severing a man's ties to the one power. According to White Tower law, men who can channel are supposed to be brought to Tar Valon to stand trial, but the Red Aja prefer to do things as brutally and quickly as possible whenever they catch a man who can channel. What happened to Owen was undeniably tragic, and it explains why Tom, a relative stranger, might stick his neck out for these kids. He wasn't able to save his nephew, but maybe, just maybe, he can help Rand and Mat. Regardless, Tom takes this opportunity to hammer home that Rand should keep Mat and himself far, far away from the sisters of the Red Aja. Now, another bit of foreshadowing here is Tom's line about nothing being more dangerous than a man who knows the past, which book readers know will play out in more ways than one, but I'll say no more for now. Rand has another nightmare after that, this time seeing Perrin hammering his dead wife Layla on a forge, Mat with blood on his hands, and Egwene being captured by that shadowy figure with burning eyes who appears as an avatar of the Dark One. Unfortunately, though, not all's well that grins well at this farm, because during the night, Rand and Tom find Mat standing inside the Grinwell house, dagger in hand, and the entire family dead around him. Fortunately, while Mat is obviously under the dagger's influence, he didn't murder them, but unfortunately, there's a damn fate in this house. Now, Mat can sense its presence in pitch blackness, perhaps because of the influence of the dagger and Shadar Logoth. It's a place where even the Shadow feared to enter, and Mat is talking as though he's possessed. And much like in the books, Tom fights the Fade by himself to give Rand and Mat time to escape, which, let's face it, they'll need, because this is the same relentless murder monster that the dark friend Dana summoned to hunt them down in the previous episode. And last but not least, we return to the Aes Sedai camp where Lan and Nynaeve share their first nice moment together since ever. Lan is offering prayers to the fallen people of Malkir, his homeland that was consumed by the Shadow long ago. And after Lan finishes praying, Nynaeve says something that she doesn't quite understand in the old tongue. She explains that it's the last thing her parents said to her when they hid her in a cellar during an attack on their village. As Lan explained, the phrase is what the last king of Manetheren said to his wife before their doomed final battle. It means we shall go into the land so our children can always hold us and will never be alone. And as Moiraine explained previously, the Old Blood, meaning descendant of the Kingdom of Manetheren, runs deep in the two rivers. And if you recall, Manetheren was one of the last bastions against the Shadow, holding out against the Dark One's forces Helm's Deep style until they were ultimately overwhelmed. As our resident Aes Sedai Amy Radcliffe theorized, perhaps this could be a hint that Nynaeve is a direct descendant of the King and Queen of Manetheren. While those in the two rivers who have connections to the Old Blood tend to know bits and pieces of the Old Tongue, her mysterious background on the show seems perfectly suited for an unexpected royal heritage. It could also explain why Nynaeve is so strong with the One Power, as we'll soon see firsthand. The episode culminates with a vicious attack on the Aes Sedai camp by Logain's army, who have tracked their supposed dragon here. During the chaos, Logain manages to break free and kills Cauthon Sedai, the green sister that healed Moiraine earlier in the episode. She sacrifices herself to shield Moiraine and Liandrin, but leaves herself open to Logain's attack. When that happens, we see our best glimpse yet of the psychic bond between Warder and Aes Sedai. Stepan, the axe-wielding Warder, immediately knows what happened to Cauthon and flies into a blind rage. And later on in the cave, this same rage has disastrous consequences as his weapons penetrate the Aes Sedai shield around Logain. The false dragon, in turn, uses the power to turn these axes into projectile weapons, slashing Lan's throat and wounding everybody else. Overcome by anger and frustration, Nynaeve goes Super Sedaian and taps into the One Power on a scale unlike anything we've seen thus far. While the show has hinted that her ability to talk to the wind meant that she could channel, this is a resounding confirmation that she is one of the strongest female channelers around. And much like in the books, Nynaeve is one of the strongest people in the One Power when she's mad as hell, and this is no exception. A skilled herbalist, it's no surprise that Nynaeve's incredible ability comes in the form of healing wounds that should have been fatal. Of course, we'll just have to wait and see how she deals with all of these Aes Sedai sisters, who will probably have a lot of questions for her about how she did what she did in the aftermath of this attack. Logain's line about Nynaeve being like a raging sun is particularly fascinating because theoretically he shouldn't be able to see the female half of the One Power. But perhaps this could be evidence that Nynaeve is ta'veren as well. That means that she could be one of those Nexus beings around whom the pattern bends and shifts probability. In the books, Logain has the ability to see ta'veren, and they're described as being surrounded by light, like we see here, but as with everything, we'll just have to wait and see. But back to the matter at hand. Taking advantage of the chaos, Liandrin leads the circle of Aes Sedai and channels their combined power to gentle Logain in a way that is so much more violent than anything I pictured in the books, like, ever. It looks as though the One Power is being ripped asunder from his ribcage like a pair of shadowy wings, like he swallowed a bird. And much like Tom's nephew Owen, Logain is left bereft on the ground, missing something that he thinks he can never get back. It's a brutal ending to frankly a brutal episode because we have Cauthon lying dead, Logain shivering on the ground, and Nynaeve dealing with the ramifications of what she's just done. And there will be much to be reckoned with in episode 5, which drops this Friday. In the meantime though, if you want to dive deeper into Nynaeve's big moment, make sure you check out Amy Ratcliffe's fantastic interview with actress Zoe Robbins over on Nerdist.com. For now though, tell us, what did you think of the Wheel of Time episode 4? Did you spot anything that we missed?
I don't.
Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.